So the box, also the box, the square the cube that they worship, the cube has to do with Venus. People think it's Saturn, and it is Saturn. It does have to do with Saturn because it's black. They painted it black. They covered it with some black. Originally, that's a rock. In the middle of that square box is a meteorite, and that they attribute to the planet Venus. What they did, every religion gets corrupted by the Saturnians, by the people who spiritually are Saturnian. Not the South American race, the Native American race is ruled by the planet Saturn. So they have the death cults and the sacrificing and stuff, but that doesn't mean they're evil. They're not evil. They are biologically and culturally ruled by the planet Saturn. But the people on the planet that spiritually revere Saturn are lost and evil. Jupiter, remember, we're not saying white people are the best because they're the Jupiter race. Biologically, they're ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter is the lightest planet, so they have the lightest skin, right? So, but when we talk about spiritually,
for the dark arts.
Right, yeah.
So, dude, you want to plug your stuff for the people? Your people obviously know where to find you, but for my people, I think they really enjoyed this last episode. I got a lot of good feedback on it, so here we are again.
Awesome. I'm glad to be back, and likewise, people loved seeing me on your show. I'm Dr. Narco Longo at Old World Florida on YouTube, and old_world_Florida on Instagram.
Awesome. I'll plug that in the description. So the reason that we're here, everybody was left with wanting more. They wanted to learn more about astrology. And I want to correct myself. It's not that I don't believe. I reserve the right to change my mind at whatever point in time. I do believe in magic. Apparently, I'm a Freemasonic pretender pretending. I don't know how that works, because if I'm pretending to be pretending, I would still be showing my true colors. So shout out to that retard that left that fucking comment. You're a fucking idiot. Congratulations. So we are going to be talking some astrology, maybe some Trump stuff. Who knows where this conversation is going to go? This is all unscripted, but here we are. And yeah, so I do believe how Agrippa and all these guys talk about the astrological alignments and how that plays a role and how that affects man. That's true. You know what I mean? That is actual history, that the moon affects crop cycles and all these other things. But we take it a step further, and even Manly Hall talks about how there's keys to be able to decipher reality itself and even potentially tell the future. And I forgot where I heard it, but when you reveal somebody your birth chart, apparently they can look in the deepest, darkest parts of your soul. So it's not good to get a reading from just anybody, because they can use that information for negative things. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I would, I'm definitely very keen on getting my enemies birth charts, because I want to know what they've got going on. So, the bad guys are pulling up their enemies' charts and using everything they can.
Did you ever hear about the war astrologer, Theophilus?
No.
I'm not too familiar with it because the new person that got introduced to me by a friend. But Theophilus was, I believe, an Arabian or Arabic astrologer, and they would use him at time of wars. So it's almost like a battle mage type of thing from Dungeons and Dragons. The dude is a fucking war astrologer. I don't know if you were familiar with that or not.
I haven't heard about that.
Are you doing a tarot card reading on air right now?
Me?
Yeah, what is that?
No, I'm looking up. You made me think of something. I'm looking up this, I don't know about war astrology, but it made me think of this battle. There was this certain battle. Can I get the name right now? It was in Africa. It was like the Zulu versus the English. And basically there was this big surprise attack coming, where all these like tribesmen were coming with like, thousands and thousands of men coming to surprise like a British fort, or a British army out in their territory, pretty much. And this battle started right when, or at the peak of the battle, a solar eclipse happened, and they had no idea it was going to happen. So at the bloodiest point in the battle, you had this solar eclipse, and like everything went black. And I don't know, it just made me think of that. It makes me think that the tribesmen probably knew that it was going to be, you know what I'm saying? They were waiting for this solar eclipse to do this attack. That's not exactly astrology, but it's,
It's the timing of the celestial bodies, and that's the whole thing behind the movie Apocalypto, right? Where the shaman is able, he knows when the eclipse is going to happen, so the people have to do whatever he wants in order for him to bring the sun back. And I think this is seen a lot of time. I'm sure that there was conmens like that all throughout history that were making people believe that they had supernatural powers because they were able to time the celestial movements of the celestial bodies and the planets and all these things. So where do you want to begin with this whole astrology thing, bro? Because it goes deep. And you telling me about how each different part of the world is ruled by a different sign. There are different people who are ruled by different signs, obviously.
Yeah.
And I was listening to I forgot what the name was. It's a Gnostic text where I think it's the creation of the world or something like that, where it talks about the creation myth, and from the Gnostic point of view, where Sophia gives birth to Yaldabaoth, and every celestial body is a different dimension and a different demon, and that orbit is that demon's domain. And that's what the Gnostic cosmology believes in, that every single demon, every single celestial body you see is a different demon with a different name, and it rules. And when your soul transcends, because that's also a Greek idea, that the soul has to pass through all the orbits of the planets, and you have to, every single orbit, you have to overcome that demon and learn its name, because they say in order for you to defeat a demon, you need to know its name. So when you transcend through the orbits, your soul's entering a different dimension in every single orbit, and you learn the demon's name. And if you get succumbed by one of these demons, you've succumbed to lust or greed or any of the 7 deadly sins, because they attribute that to the 7 celestial bodies. And I mean, I find Gnosticism very fascinating, but they obviously flip everything on its head, and it's super heretical.
Yeah. Well, the Gnostics were pretty interesting. They're the true Christians. They're the people that embraced the pagan origins, and they didn't dismiss them as being evil. That was the later clergy. But regardless, as far as the spheres go, and descending down into reincarnating onto the planet, you do pass through each 7 of the spheres, so to speak. Not the spheres, but each one of the planets has almost a layer outside of this realm. And as your soul comes down through it, the moon, being the closest to the earth, is the last that the soul passes through. And what does soul mean? Soul means sun. So your soul is your sun, your sun energy. So that right there is astrology. Everyone says soul, soul. And what's soul backwards? Soul backwards is luz, which means light in Spanish, right? Latin, luz, soul. And Latin is backwards, by the way. Latin is backwards Germanic or a Nordic language.
It's really interesting. I didn't know about that. But I attribute even the story of Jesus and his 12 disciples. Jesus is the sun, and the 12 disciples are the 12 zodiac signs. And
right.
Even the name Saul Oh,
Hmm.
Mon is the sun in three different languages. So Solomon is actually also. They talk about how the Bible is like the Zoroastrians, right? The whole myth. It's a
Yeah,
copy of that, and also that it is an alchemical text more than anything, and everything's encoded.
yeah. If I can hop in on the disciples, so absolutely, the disciples are the 12 signs of the zodiac. Jesus was never a real person, not in the sense that we think. If he was, he wasn't. Didn't look like what we think. His name wasn't Jesus Christ. I can promise you that. Um, we know that Jesus was made in the image of Cesare Borgia. Cesare Borgia, the son of a pope, and he became the printed image of Jesus. What so like 500 years ago, you know, and blah blah blah. So to the disciples, we know the disciples are the signs of the zodiac. You don't have to believe in that. There's no believing. If you know your etymology, it's obvious. So we have Philip means horse lover. Philo means love. Hippo means horse. Philip means horse lover, horseman. So Philip is Sagittarius. Thomas means twin. Thomas means twin. Um, Thus, it's Gemini. Peter was the first pope. Peter is Jupiter, and that's another reference to Pisces. So that's why Peter was the first pope after Jesus' death, because Peter is Pisces. He's the sign that represents Pisces. Jesus himself represented Pisces because throughout all the ages, you get this solar myth of the sun traversing the zodiac. So back in the age of Taurus, it was the bull. It was a bull god with the bull. You know, the sacrificial altars and everything was bull worship. That was the age of Taurus, which was the year 4000 BC to 2000 BC. Then we get the age of Aries from 2000 BC to 0. From 0 to 2080 was the age of Pisces. And now we're in the age of Aquarius from 2000 to 2000, 2012, same thing, to 4000 AD. So yeah, there you go. Disciples, the zodiac. And Judas is Scorpio. Judas is Scorpio because he's the backstabber. He stabbed Jesus in the back. Closed. Some people keep coming up to the door because I have the lights on. But Judas is the backstabber. He's Scorpio. And his last name is Iscariot, I think.
Yeah,
Also,
it's Iscariot or something like that. Iscariot.
yeah, Iscariot, I think. But
Scary. Yeah.
that also translates roughly to eagle or dagger or something like that. And so he's Scorpio. He's the backstabber. He's winter. So Jesus's life is the path of the zodiac, right? And we know that he was born on the solstice, the winter solstice, and he died on the equinox. I think. Yeah, I think I got that right. But if you want to know your timelines, let's start with recorded history. So 4000 BC is pretty much when we start seeing civilization. Now, I don't know what got reset before that or what, but from 4000 BC to 2000 BC, like I said, we see all the bull worship. So the prime god, because that was the age of Taurus. Taurus means bull, tauro, bull. So Taurus is, every time you see these cave drawings of cows or the cow god, or you hear about the ancient Sanskrit, Vedic people worshiping the cow, revering the cow, this was the age of Taurus, right? Now, Tartarian, the word Tartarian talks about Taurus. The word Tartarian is the word Taurus and Aries put together, because that is when these people really started referring to themselves as Aryan. So that's another thing. We talked last time about how Aryan does not mean white supremacy. What Aryan means is during the age of Aries, and that is when the European race probably came from Atlantis, and was calling themselves Aryan because they're in the age of Aries. Here, let me go. I'm going to go close the blinds real quick.
Yes, this is all very fascinating. So Dr. Longo is at his bookstore, and he does have people peeking in and out of the windows, and there's people making noise and all kinds of stuff, but it's all good. It's all good. Make sure to check out his bookstore. I'm very excited to be visiting. I'm going to visit not this weekend, next weekend, and I'm very excited because I kicked my book writing into overdrive, so hopefully I can find some good source material there at the bookstore and get to chat.
We're going to have some presents for you too.
Oh, dude, hell yeah. Awesome. So we have this Tartarian Atlantis connection when it comes to, right? Because we know that mainstream history is fucked up. It's fucked. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They want to censor it. They want to the establishment, the educational establishment is ruled by, and made up by the Rockefellers and a lot of these powerful families since the beginning of time. Mm-hmm. We know this shit, right?
Well, medicine, the Rockefeller, the American bloodlines go back farther than America, of course. For example, the Collins family, like we talked about last time. What was Christopher Columbus's real name? Cristobal Colon. Well, Cologne is the the Italian name. Columbus is the Portuguese name, right? When he goes to America, when his descendants start spreading out in America, it's the Collins family. Collins. When they're in Israel, it's the Cohen family.
Is that why it's the colonies? Colonies?
Yes. Well, that's why it's colony. Exactly. Colony.
Colonial. Yeah.
Colonial, and then District of Columbia. Is everyone just talking about Columbus, or is there a Columbia family? It seems like there's a Columbia family, a bloodline. And so medicine, like you said, Rockefeller got us on to the doctor hospital system, Well, medicine comes from the word Medici. Medici is,
the cult of Medici. Have you heard of that series before?
Yeah, they're not the greatest of families. They have not such a great history, but I think we should touch on the astrological tendencies of the races, because this is very interesting. You start to see how culture develops and where culture springs out of, and where the different races get their influence and their aesthetic, and their gifts. So I think we should start with the
yeah, because it's interesting that every single different. So when it comes to astro-theology, it's weird how every single culture has different views on the same thing. For example, in Japanese cosmology, the sun is feminine and the moon is masculine. So they inverted it. Why did they? We don't know, but very, very interesting. But yeah, absolutely. Go ahead and continue with why each race has certain tendencies and why they act the way they do.
So in the beginning, we were all brown-haired, brown-eyed. We were all Mediterranean looking, for lack of a better word. Possibly, Hispanic, maybe, but dark skinned, dark eyed. There was no white, there was no black. People don't like to hear this, but that's the way it was. And this one race could live all over the planet as one family, and we all looked very, very similar. Very similar. We all looked like we belonged to the same family because there was no variation among the planet. It was tropical all over. There was banana, there was papaya, there was mango on, and we know this to be true. Science admits this. Science says, during the dinosaur age or whatever, it was tropical all over. Something changed. Well, something did change. It was perhaps something we did. We messed up. We might have committed the first sin. We may have, whatever it was. God might have just wanted to make the game a little more interesting. But we got punished. And we got punished with hell. And we've been led to believe that hell is hot today, that it's scorching hot. And that's, what's so punishing about it. In reality, hell is freezing cold. It's freezing. That's worse than heat. Now, you speak Spanish. Can you tell me what winter is in Spanish?
Invierno. So it sounds like inferno.
Now tell me hell. Infierno.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's even closer in Italian. So winter is hell. And we know that because Santa is Saturn. Santa is Satan. And Satan comes in hell. Saturn rules winter. Saturn rules Capricorn, which is the height of winter, the winter solstice, when the sun is at its weakest.
Saturnalia, right? The
exactly.
The
That's
festival.
The Roman
Christmas. The Roman Christmas, where they do elect a pseudo king, and at the end they do sacrifice that pseudo king. It's a very fucked up. And there's also another one that came before that, but definitely that's what inspired our Western Santa Claus. It is also related to Mithras, where December 24th or 25th is the birthday of Mithras, the lion-headed man, I guess, with a serpent around his body kind of looking thing.
Yeah. Mithra is often linked to the bull too. He's a bull god a lot of the time. But I'll tell you, here you go. This is astrology answers everything, and it makes everything so easy. So sphinxes and griffins and like composite animals like that, like
chimeras.
Exactly, with like lion, features or a lion's body with lion's paws, eagle wings, a scorpion's tail, and then the face of a human. Well, those are the four fixed signs of the zodiac. Those are the four fixed signs of the zodiac. Taurus, the bull, and some of them have bull features too. I forgot to mention that. Bull, eagle, human, lion. Those are the four fixed signs of the zodiac. Taurus, the bull, Aquarius, the human, Scorpio, the eagle, and Leo, the lion. So you'll always see those four mixed together. Then if you go to the mutable signs, the four mutable signs, Sagittarius, Gemini, Pisces, and Virgo, what you'll see are the serpent with two faces and horse features, or like a seahorse.
It's Medusa,
like,
right? With the two faces. She looks at herself as beautiful, but then there's the other one where she's a monster.
Serpents. Mm-hmm. Because Virgo isn't the serpent, but Virgo's symbol is the caduceus with the two serpents. So that's one serpent. Pisces rules sea monsters, whales and fish and things that swim in a slither. Pisces is the fish, but also sea monsters that, it's hard to memorize all this stuff if you're hearing it for the first time. But Sagittarius is the horse, of course, half human, half horse. But
So
when you
did they mix them as they would rotate in the sky? Because the whole story is that a shepherd would trace the constellations as he was watching his herd.
no
You
no
know what
no
I mean?
astrology was never invented ever. Astrology was never invented. It was never realized. It was never split up into 12 segments by humans. No, these are the same 12 threads that feed every aspect of existence. So the 12 signs of the zodiac, of course, rule the 12 disciples. They're the 12 Olympians. They're the 12 labors of Hercules. Buddha had 12 disciples. They're the 12 chromatic notes of music. And then, if you go to 7, you have the 7 planets. You have 7 notes in a musical scale, 7 colors of a rainbow, 7 chakras, 7 virtues, 7 sins, 7 days of the week, 7, you can go on and on. Now, the days of the week is probably something that people need to know. People just need to know that. As much as I want to keep some stuff for myself, this stuff should be like the ABCs. People should know that Monday is Moon Day, Sunday is Sunday, Mars Day is Tuesday. And if you know your Spanish, like I said, I think I said that last episode, if you know one Latin language and one Germanic language, you can understand every language on the planet through etymology and phonetics. You don't need to know a language if you know your phonetics.
That's really interesting. So they were back again to the storytelling. I tell people that religion it's all part of the art of memory, where arithmetic, in order for you to remember things and be able to recite them, is to tell the craziest story you could possibly remember, and you paint that mind palace and you construct a mind palace, and as you're remembering these things, you walk through that mind palace, and the crazier these things are, the easier it is to remember them. So this is why a lot of these guys back then, there's people who literally go to palaces and just remember the layout to be able to fill it in with information, whatever that information is, and that's the mind palace, the mind palace technique, which I've used it before as well. But that's why it's crazy. Look at the Iliad and all these other ancient texts where he's swimming to the bottom of the sea to get this plant, Gilgamesh, and there's this Enkidu, this crazy wild man, right? And she's trying to seduce him and all this other stuff, like this crazy fucking story. Because back then, only the stuff that was truly important was the stuff that was chiseled in stone. That's why they don't say it's not written in stone. Well, it's not written in stone because it wasn't important enough to be written in stone. So people would tell stories. It taps in. That's why a lot of people enjoy the story format podcast, where it taps into our primal nature as people, and it really captivates. It goes back to our ancestors that are sitting behind a fire telling a story about some crazy shit that's happening in the sky. Like the Mithras is fighting the bull, and then you have the scorpion biting at the bull's balls or something like that. That's kind of funny. That's comedy. So let's add that in there. And you had people who would literally make entire sculptures of this. You know what I mean? And it's an alchemical equation in a statue form. That's what it goes back down to that, because alchemy also plays a role into all this shit.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Now, if you want to talk about stories, I started telling a little bit of the greatest story ever, the real history of the human race. And this will tie into astrology. It ends with a nice astrological lesson. As I was saying, the entire planet was tropical. Mango, banana, coconut. We were all brown hair, brown-eyed. Something happened. It got cold. Winter happened. It was flooding in some areas. It was frozen in others. There was ice sheets, glaciers. And Helsinki this is in my Finnish video, but Helsinki, somewhere near the Arctic Circle, was the original North Pole of the planet. I've got my little prop here. The North Pole of the planet was rooted somewhere else than where it is today. And this is flat or round. This works on both systems. It doesn't matter. So whatever happened, our seasons shifted. Something happened and we were conditioned with winter. And the movements of the sun especially became less predictable, or still predictable but less constant. Speeds up and slows down throughout the year. Right, they'll say this is the wobble on the ball model, but we know that's all BS. So something happened, it was frozen, and the whole world lived in harmony before. The North Pole was the capital city of the planet, of this brown hair, brown-eyed people. And from the North Pole, the knowledge, there was a like Yggdrasil. What do they call it? Yggdrasil, where you have the
Is that
North
the world
Pole,
tree?
the world tree,
Mhm.
kind of like we're talking about the ancestral trees.
Mhm.
You have the world tree that was planted in the North Pole, and that was the world tree. We don't know what that looks like today. No one gets to go over there, but it might be close to Helsinki. But Hell was the name. It may not be Helsinki today, but Hell was the name of this North Pole at the center point of our planet, whatever. And from there, the knowledge was dispersed outward to the ringlands. There was various ringlands, like the Tropic of Capricorn, the Tropic of Cancer, and you notice where those get their names: Tropic of Capricorn, Tropic of Cancer. And those two signs are right across from themselves. If you know your astrology, that proves flat Earth right there, but we don't have to get into that. So the knowledge was dispersed from this capital city. And once the ice came, the capital city got blocked off from everybody else. The tropical lands remained tropical, but they became more variated, less constant. So now you had desert, you had tundra, you had Africa, you had Australia. Things became differentiated. And when things become differentiated, whenever there are options presented, so-called random options, the planets lend their influence automatically. There's no conscious God that's making all these correspondences happen. It's like tarot. When you let the cards fall as they will, the angels just show themselves through and make their influence known.
So you don't believe that there is some sort of cosmic architect out there controlling the simulation? Or
of course there is. There's the one God. Then there's the two gods, right? So there's the one God, the source, the universe. Universe, what does universe mean? Uni, one, verse, word, or sentence. So the one word, the one sentence, right? You could call this Om if you wanted to. You could call this source, like we said, the everythingness, the nothingness. But that's not good enough for God. God seeks to multiply himself, to manifest himself, differentiate himself. So he does masculine and feminine. He created the sun and he created the moon. But when we say created, we don't mean at a point in time. This isn't a story, a linear story. It's like how you were saying before with the palace, the mind palace. You create the creation story, not because it's a point A to point B, but because it's a process of how God expresses himself first through the sun. Then he differentiates himself to the feminine. The moon is the exact reflection of the sun. The sun is the least, one second. The sun is the least dense object in the sky. It is the most fiery and most ethereal. So you can think about the sky as, the firmament. The sun is just a lens, an open lens that is showing unobstructed divinity, unobstructed God, unobstructed light, goodness, energy. And it's coming through so hot, so radiantly, right? Now, the moon is the opposite of that, where you have the cold, the wet, and it's the most dense object in the sky. So what you see is the moon is made of selenite, by the way. The moon is made of selenite.
The precious stone, the one that recharges?
Yes.
Interesting.
If you look at it, the moon looks like selenite.
Mhm.
It has the same translucent quality, and selenite means moonstone. Selene means the moon. Selenite means moonstone. And moonstone something else, but blah, blah, blah. So back to the sun and the moon. So God differentiates himself between masculine and feminine. But then, even past that, that's not good enough for him. He needs to become three-dimensional. So, and we're saying he, because everything up there in the sky is masculine in a broad scale. Everything down below us is feminine. So there's fire and air up there. There's earth and water down there. There's no magma. There's some lava, but there's no, hot core. But from the two, from the mother and the father, you get the Trinity. So God unfolds himself into another dimension, and he's the three, the Trinity, the Father, the Mother, and the child, the offspring. So this is Mother Mary, Father Joseph, Jesus. This is Isis, Osiris, Horus, and so on. It has its equivalent in virtually every faith. Now, in Christianity, what they did was they messed with that. They took out the goddess, and they made it three men. That's why Christianity is so gay. And that's why there's so many pedophiles and molestations. Because they don't celebrate.
That would be Catholicism, though, right? Which obviously birthed Christianity.
Well, they're the most guilty of it, but it happens in other churches too. It happens in every religion, in every faith. But let's not lie. It happens in Christianity a lot more. So we get the Father, the Mother, and the Holy Spirit, the offspring, right? The union of masculine and feminine, which in itself is a third entity. So now we have the three. But that's not good enough either. So now he expresses himself, unfolds those three into the seven. And now God has seven faces. Now with seven faces, with seven different, clones, you can get a lot more done. So through the seven planets, God makes himself more efficient, if that makes sense, more precise, rather than having one God. How hard is that one God to understand? If it's going to be difficult. So when he has seven faces, God becomes, we have the God of war, we have the God of love, the God of knowledge and learning, you have the God of religion, you have the God of control and punishment, and then you have the God, well, the sun and the moon too. But the human body is also a map of astrology. You have the 5 planets right here. Okay, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Satan. This is the fuck you planet, This is the fuck you finger because it's Saturn, Satan. This is the love finger. This is why you get married on this finger. It's Venus. And this is the Mercury finger. Yeah, there you go.
Is that what this is?
Yeah, that might have the wrong correspondences, but that's the idea.
Interesting.
So Mars is the thumb because that's action. Mars is all about action, and you can't get anything done without a thumb. Jupiter is the planet of religion and luck. This is the finger you use to point the way to, this is Satan, this is the bad finger, like we said. Venus, the love finger, and this is Mercury. So snobby people, educated people, they sip their tea with their pinky out. That's a stretch. But so we also see this, how you can know that the 12 signs of the zodiac are not just made up, is that we have 12 systems in the body. So if you know this, if you know your anatomy, there's 12 systems in the body. So Aries rules the cerebrospinal system, Sagittarius rules the muscular system, and so on. Pisces rules the circulatory system, I believe, and they each have a correspondence. So there aren't 13 systems in the body, there's 12 systems in the body, and they correspond directly.
And I for those that haven't checked out The Occult Anatomy of Man by Manly P. Hall, I think you should check that out, because it also the story of Christ, because from Gnostic cosmology, the Christ is a title. Jesus was the man, and in the river of Jordan, he was possessed by Christ, the Spirit, and the Spirit obviously came through the aeons and shot into the body of Jesus the man, and it's only a title. Now, it's very interesting the way that they paint it out, because John the Baptist, by the Mundians or the Manichaeans, I forget which ones, that he's revered as the actual Messiah, because he's the one that supposedly was able to put this in Jesus. Again, it's a very weird, and that's why it's heretical. That's why these guys were burned at the stake, and they were all killed, because they're talking about some stuff that, I mean, it's heretical. It's heretical as fuck. So I really enjoy that the Gnostic cosmology when it comes to that, because it paints a different picture of the entire story. But I do 100% believe that any religion is the retelling of the same story, just with different faces and a little plot twist here and there. They change it up just enough for the political era, for what the political atmosphere was at the time. Constantine, right? He wanted to, it's one thing to say, hey, I'm going to be your king or your emperor or whatever. It's one thing to say, hey, God appointed me to be your emperor. There's two different connotations, and the way it hits people, it's a lot different, right? It's going to appeal more, and people were way superstitious back then. So of course they're like, oh, God sent him to us, right? Look at the movie Apocalypto, right? The shaman, like, oh, he's the one that has all the power. We have to sacrifice all these people. Hurry, hurry, hurry. It's a natural thing that occurs in the sky, but the dude is using it for his gain. So I've always enjoyed that Gnostic cosmology when it comes to that, where it paints, it is a story in the sky, essentially, and they do switch it around 100%.
So that's another beauty of astrology, is that we can know how they control us and how they're going to control us. I think I said in the last podcast, an astrologer 6,000 years ago could have told you what technology would look like today. There's always been advanced technology, but the type of technology that serves us in this age is much different than the technology that served us in the last age. So, and that has to do with how they're going to control us too, because in the age of Aries, you had to individually subdue your opponents, because every man was a warrior in the age of Aries. There was no baker, there was no, cobbler. You were a soldier primarily, unless you were part of some fringe civilization. Now, every man, like I said, was a warrior and was trained in the arts of war. And there really wasn't much conquering going on. It was just fighting, and, everyone had to hold their own. So if you got taken over, you got taken over. It wasn't as treacherous and conniving as it is today. and as how it was in the last age, Pisces as well. So in the age of Aries, well, we should start in the age of Taurus. In the age of Taurus, you had matriarchal society, because in the age of Taurus, Taurus's rule is a feminine sign. It's the most feminine sign, and it's ruled by Venus and the moon. So in that age, from 4000 BC to 2000 BC, you see the cow worship, like we were talking about, but also you see goddess worship, and you see matriarchal society. And then at the age of Taurus, when the age of Taurus switched over to the age of Aries, about 2000 BC, you get patriarchal society, and people start worshiping the ram, and you see the ram's horn. Everyone's blowing the ram's horn, everyone's using the ram's blood and stuff like that, because it's the age of Aries, so their god had the form of a ram. Now, like I said, I don't know how much controlling was going on in the age of Taurus. I personally think that the age of Taurus was kind of like a little mini golden age. Well, I guess it was the Bronze Age.
Is that where the golden cow comes from? Was that Taurus season?
Well, kind of. But Taurus is all about femininity and nature. So I don't think there was much dick measuring going on in this age, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Right? So people were just kind of lazy and just ate and had just reproduced, and life was pretty sweet. Sweet would be the key word for that age, Taurus. And there's not much to say. And there's a kind of a blank spot in history in the age of Taurus, the age of Gemini, back until you get to the Ice Age, 10,000, 15,000 years ago. But whatever. So in the age of Aries, you have military. Military strength is like the primary virtue. So in the whole age of Aries, there was not one inkling, not one of the philosophers said anything about world peace, because there was no, what's world peace for? Everyone's fighting, and there's nothing wrong about fighting, because fighting was a virtue. You could actually get to heaven by fighting. That sounds strange to say.
Valhalla, yeah.
Exactly. So you had all these warrior religions where that was your number one path to God. And in the age before that, the number one path to God was through nature, in the age of Taurus. Now, in the age of Pisces, we see organized religion.
What year are we in? This is the axial age, right? The age
that would be 0. So Aries is 2000 BC to 0.
Okay.
And then 0 to 2000 is the birth of Christ, the birth of Jesus. And Jesus is Jupiter. Jesus is Jupiter Zeus.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus, right? Jesus, Zeus. So Jupiter is Jesus, and Jesus he's Thor. He's King Arthur. His day is Thursday, Thor's day.
Oof, yeah.
His planet and his holiday, which is in Sagittarius, is Thanksgiving. Thor's giving, which is all about abundance and wealth. And there's the only holiday that has no bad interpretation whatsoever is Thanksgiving. That has no spiritual guilt tripping whatsoever. Thanksgiving is all about positivity.
Is it though about the genocide of?
Okay, well maybe.
Okay,
but
yeah.
but Thanksgiving is Jupiter, because Jupiter rules 2 signs: Sagittarius, which is when Thanksgiving is. That's when I'm born, November 23rd, 1996. I won't give out the time, so I can't get black magicked. But November 23rd. So some years my birthday falls on Thanksgiving, and I'm the first day of Sagittarius. So that's how you know Thanksgiving is the holiday for Sagittarius. Just like Christmas is the holiday for Capricorn, the goat, that is ruled by Saturn. Saturn rules Capricorn. The word sacrifice comes from the word Capricorn. What was I going to say? Halloween is Scorpio, which is Scorpio is all about sex and death. Well, what do we do on Halloween? You dress sexy or you dress dead, like a dead person. So that's Scorpio. They're all kinky and about death and rebirth and the dark underworld. Then you have Libra, and we're going backwards, but that's okay. Libra, you have the fall equinox. So Libra is the fall equinox, the cusp of Libra. And you see the Jewish holiday falls on that. I forget which one, but one of the Jewish holidays falls on Libra, on the fall equinox. Then you have St. Patrick's Day in Pisces, because Patrick is Jupiter. Etymology can be a little stretchy sometimes, but Patrick is Potterick. Potterick is Peter, if that makes sense. Potter and Harry. There you go. Harry Potter. Harry Potter with his lightning bolt tattoo. This lightning bolt is
interesting. What's Harry Potter's birthday? Let's look that up.
I don't know, but I know the actor. He's a Leo, but that doesn't matter. But Harry Potter has the thunderbolt because he is Jupiter. Jupiter. He is Harry Potter. Peter. He's Peter, the first pope. He's St. Petersburg, which is all
July 31st, 1980.
That would make him a Leo is that the actor?
No, the character.
Okay, so they chose a Leo to play a Leo. Yeah. You'll find that a lot in movies too. I'm going to be doing stuff like that, going deep into Stanley Kubrick movies, showing the astrology of people. It's pretty lame if you don't care about astrology, but
it's not that I don't care about it. It's that I was
not you.
Well, my case is I was born and raised Pentecostal Christian. So when it comes to a lot of this, it would be considered divination, wouldn't it? Where you're looking at the stars.
So here's another thing. The only instance where God condemns astrology, in the Bible, he never condemns astrology. He condemns astrologers. Why does he condemn astrologers? Because back then, astrologers were, and look at what sentence he says it in. He says, beware of astrologers at the same time that he's saying, beware of bankers, money changers, lawyers, doctors. God even says, beware of doctors, because these are the people that have a highly specialized profession, and if you don't know what you're doing when dealing with them, you can get ripped off. So that's what God's talking about. He's not saying astrology is from the devil. He's saying be weary of people that charge for their knowledge, so to speak. But astrology is good. In the Old Testament, the Lord says to Moses, I think he might say it to Abraham, but he says, can you tell forth the Mazzaroth? And Mazzaroth means zodiac. So he's telling his prophet, can you serve me? Can you read the zodiac? Or do I need someone else to do it? So he wanted his prophets to know their astrology.
I want to read the definition of astrology here that I have. An ancient system in which the positions of the planets and stars are used for prophecy and divination, and which plays an important role in magic and alchemy. Of all the occult arts, astrology is the most enduringly popular despite attempts by scientists to discredit it. Astrology is based on a principle attributed to Hermes Trismegistus, as above, so below. The ancients viewed Earth and man as microcosms of the universe, a belief that endured through the Renaissance. Astrology holds that the celestial bodies exert forces and exhibit personalities that influence people and events below in the microcosm. These influences may be determined by mapping positions in the sky. At various times, the influences also are used to determine the most auspicious
Auspicious. Yeah.
times to undertake magical work and alchemical processes. And what I was going to say earlier was that idea of understanding the micro in order to understand the macro. So if you break down the human body, the ancients wanted to understand it because if they understood the micro, they could understand the grander scale. If they were able to affect the micro, they could learn to affect the macro, and that's the whole thing with the law of attraction and things of this nature. So I'm on board with that. And if you break down like the 33 vertebrae, the 33 years of Christ, the River of Jordan is the spinal column that goes and opens up. I did a whole episode on it like probably 3 years ago, but the body, the human anatomy, again, the occult anatomy of man is this same story told in a smaller scale.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the human body is the zodiac. If you could lean back and grab your ankles in a loop like a yoga position, that is how the zodiac is painted in the sky. So you have, or you'd be going toe to head like a scorpion almost.
I've seen that before. There's a painting like that, right?
Yeah, if you look up syncrota wheel, it's like sync rota. It's kind of Syncrota, syncrota wheel. You can see this, what I'm talking about. But basically, you have the head, which is Aries, right? Aries is the ram, and rams have the horns on the front of their head, on their forehead, right? And that's because Aries rules the cerebrum, the cerebram. You have the ram at the end, ram. So this is the Aries. Then on the back, you have the cerebellum. Yeah, that's Santos Bonacci's. Yeah, I love Santos Bonacci. If you don't know Santos Bonacci, check him out, by the way.
Can't get this one open up bigger. But yeah, anyways, I've seen that before. Yeah, right there.
So on the back of the head, on the neck, you have the cerebellum. This is the back of the brain, the cerebellum. So you have the bull. And bull means bell. Bell rules, Taurus rules bell, bull. You have bell flowers. You have the bell that you ring. Right, blah, blah, blah. So Taurus is the cerebellum, the bull. And it's also the throat, the neck. And bulls have that big, beefy neck. Then you have Gemini, which is the third sign. This is the arms and the hands, the twins. These are the twins. So we're going top down. First sign, second sign, third sign, Gemini's, the twins, the hands. Then you have Cancer, the breast. And what's the most common type of cancer? Breast cancer. And why is that? Because cancer means to reproduce. That's the definition of cancer. Quick reproduction, where cells are reproducing too quickly. So Cancer is the mother of the zodiac because she is the nurturer. That's why she's in the breasts, because you nurture children from the breast, right? You nurse children from the breast. So Cancer means reproduction. So the sign Cancer has to do with motherhood, but then you have the disease Cancer that's named Cancer because it's when a cell reproduces too quickly. And that is where the name Cancer comes from, because it's like reproduction. You get it. I think I made it clear. So this is Taurus. Sorry, Gemini. Cancer. Sorry, someone texted me, threw me off. Cancer is the breast. Then next you have Leo in the heart. Leo is the heart, like a lion's
heart. The heart of a lion, yeah.
The heart of a lion.
Pride.
Corazon de Leon,
Mm-hmm.
Coeur de Leon. It's the same theme in almost every language. So then you have, I'm going to stand up. Then you have Virgo, the belly. Virgo rules caves. These are the caves, the intestines, the tunnels. Virgo is the hermit. The hermit lives in the cave, goes into the mountain, right? This is the inners of the earth. And hermit, Virgo. Hermes is Mercury. Mercury rules Virgo. Blah blah blah. Then you get Libra. Libra is the scales, right? Libra is the kidneys. If you see the kidneys, they look like scales. They come down and they drop down in the lower back, and Libra is the scales.
And they keep balance too in the body. They
exactly. They have to, exactly. They have to be balanced too. Then you get. I'll stand back up. Then you get Scorpio, which is the sex organs, right? Scorpio is all about sex. You get it, rebirth. It also rules the excretory system. So it's your butt and your sex organs. It's where the sun doesn't shine too. That's keep that in mind. Where the sun doesn't shine, that's because it's Scorpio. When the sun is about to be at its lowest, when the sun is betrayed and stabbed. It's
interesting.
Judas. So then you get Sagittarius, which is the hips. It's the hips and the thighs. So with the thighs, the hips and the thighs, the word hip comes from the word hippo, which means horse. Hippo doesn't mean hippo. Hippo gets the name hippo because hippo already meant horse to the Greeks. And then when they went to Africa, they saw the hippos and they look like water horses or river horses. So that's where you get the word hippopotamus. Potamus, like potable, water. Potamus means river or water, so it means water horse. So hippopotamus doesn't have to do with hippo or Philip, like we said. Philip, Felipe. This is the Sagittarius name, and people's names are their zodiac signs. You'll find this very often, like. Whatever, I won't tell you my name, but
Dr. Narco Longo is your name, bro.
Yeah, that's all you have to worry about. But going past Sagittarius, the hips and the thighs, that's the horse. And when you look at a horse, what's the most prominent part of a horse? They have those hips, those big hips.
Got a big old ass, yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, the butt too, like the butt muscles. Sagittarius rules. The anus, Scorpio rules. I know you want to write that down. You're
I actually know people who they do. I don't know what it would be called, but they've sunbathed their assholes. They say it's really good for you.
Well, I mean, yeah. I think every part of your body should get sunned at least once.
You ever done that, bro? You ever just stretched your ass out and just sat in the sun?
No. I mean, I've tanned naked. I had a house that I could go on the roof on. And I think, it's not that it's like a fetish or anything, but you have skin all over your body.
Mm-hmm.
Every square inch of your skin should get at least a little sunlight.
Yeah.
So there you go. Do what you will.
I have I have this I'm sorry, you can continue, but I have this really interesting overview of astrology in the Encyclopedia of Magic and Alchemy by, I forgot her name.
Yeah, let me finish the body parts. I'm 4 away from being finished. So
we're at the asshole, I think, right?
Sagittarius is the hips and the thighs. And you'll find that each of these signs have prominent body parts like this. Like I'm a Sagittarius. I have big hips, even for a skinny guy. I have.
What does Taurus have? Have big dicks or what?
No, that's actually Sagittarius. Half human, half horse. But
so what's Taurus's thing?
Horse from the waist down. So 1 second. Taurus is the neck. Taurus is all about the throat. So you probably give great throat.
That's fucking gay. All right.
Yeah,
Moving along.
just kidding. But Taurus is also, yeah, it's just the neck, pretty much. It's the throat and the neck, but it's not the voice, if that makes sense. So, but past Sagittarius, now we're at the 10th sign of the zodiac. Capricorn is the knees. And where do we see the word cap? The knee cap, Capricorn, it's the goat. You'll see the goats are always using their knees. Their knees are always bent. Their knees are very rarely straight, especially when they're climbing those mountains. They're putting all their weight in their knees. You don't have to worry about that. But then you have Aquarius, which is the shins and the calves, and the ankle, the shin, and the calf. So below the knee, above the foot. Now, Achilles, you can swap the R with the L in many languages, like I said, and Achilles becomes Aquarius. And how did Achilles get dipped into the holy water? He got dipped by his ankle. So he got held by his ankle and dipped into the water. So these body parts come through the myths too. It's all in the Bible too. But now we're at Pisces, the fish. And Pisces, if you know your Spanish, and a lot of these body parts correspond in Spanish, but like mano is hand, right? Mano is Gemini, and we're going to stretch it, but Gemini turns into Gemano. Mini, mono, Gemini, mono is the hands. But with feet, you're going to see it's much more clear. Pisces is pescado, fish. Well, your feet in Spanish are pies, right? Pies,
You're right.
pescado.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So with Pisces, you'll see how one sign of the zodiac branches out into a million different aspects, but all back to one theme. So with Pisces, the word peace comes from Pisces. Because peace, the peace sign is the Vesica Pisces. The original peace sign is when two circles mix together, and you get that slit in the middle, that crescent, double crescent in the middle. That's also where you get the word pussy. So
Nice.
So pussies, because that's the slit. That's like, and pussies are fishy, they shouldn't be, but you'll see that pescado, Pisces, pussy, piece of pizza. A pizza is the circle, and you're taking a slice out of that circle. It's the same idea. You're using pie, a pie of pizza. Pi is how you get the diameter of a circle, or the circumference of a circle using the radius, whatever. So Pisces, you see how this theme goes throughout almost every P word or Pisces word. And that's where you get all those symbols that correspond to Jesus. The fish is Jesus.
Isn't that weird though? The fish, which is related to the womb or the vagina, would represent Jesus. Have you ever? It's gonna get kind of weird, but have you ever heard of the Jesus' vagina story? Have you heard that before?
No.
You never heard that before? Well, no. Jesus has a vagina, and this is really heretical, but the slit on the side of Jesus.
Okay, yeah.
There's paintings, actually, medieval paintings of that being the feminine aspect of Jesus, because obviously when they cut into him, it spills out blood and some sort of water. What do women, with the period and all that stuff? It's blood and fluids, right? And there are paintings of people being birthed through the side, through that cut.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's almost like a cesarean section.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really interesting though. If people didn't know Jesus does have a vagina, you can look it up yourself.
Well, Jesus was a Pisces, and Jesus was a pussy. He was all about peace, and he would let someone slap him and he wouldn't slap him back.
Yikes!
Well,
We should name the episode that Jesus was a pussy.
if
Wow.
you know any Pisces, that's what Pisces are like. And every person has their breaking point, but Pisces are pushovers. Okay, so Pisces very often, because they're too forgiving. And what was Christianity all about? Supposed to be, forget the control structure, forget the control
Turning
system.
the other cheek.
But Pisces is all about just giving up, like don't fight. And pacifist, this is where the word pacifist comes from. Pacifist, Pisces, peace, pescado. It's all the same. It's all the same root. And if you're weak and you give someone a weak handshake, you have a fishy handshake. Give them a fish, because these are all symbols of softness and femininity, and Pisces is all about that. And it's a gift. So Pisces, I think we should go into like a description of all the signs of the zodiac too, and what they're like. We should start in order. Pisces is the last, but Pisces are very soft people, very sensitive, very quiet, very shy. And if you know one that isn't like that, it's because they're overcompensating for how sensitive they are. They might be overly violent. They might be overly dangerous. So you get, like, Kurt Cobain is like the number one Pisces archetype, the sad boy that's like always, crying, but very sensitive, very artistical. They're musically gifted. They're artistically gifted. They're one of the most creative signs, and that emotion lends itself to musical genius, creative genius. But they go through a lot of torment because they feel everyone's feelings, and that is what the age of Pisces was like. That's what Christianity is all about.
I feel everyone's feelings when I do mushrooms.
Well, Taurus is all about eating. Tauruses love to eat. They love food. So their connection with God very much is all about eating. So if you're going to eat a mushroom, even better. But let's just start with Aries. For those that don't know their zodiac signs, Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. It's a fire sign. It's very hot. The people have a very hot temperament. They walk in a room, it's very hot, it's spicy, they're high energy, they're very, very agile, but they don't think before they do. They're the fool of the zodiac because they're the first sign. They're like a baby in an adult body, and they bump into things head first like a ram. They do without thinking. They rush into things without thinking, and that's good. So they're good leaders. But leader in the truest sense of the word. Leader as in being the first one leading, not like in the background telling people what to do. That's not Aries. So Aries is the pioneer. They go first. They want to be the first one through the door. And back in ancient times, the soldiers and most men, cultures would try and have their men born in the age of Aries, because those were the most brave and courageous.
That's fucking crazy, dude.
Men. So you would have your soldiers be born in Aries. The Tauresians are usually, and Aries are usually, they're fit and they're muscular, but they're skinny. They stay skinny for the most part. Now, don't hold it against me if you're fat. Not you, but if there's an Aries out there that's fat, nothing's going to protect you.
This fucking doctor sucks. I'm fat as fuck.
So Aries is the violent. They're very violent. They're very explosive. They start really fast. They don't need any time to warm up. They're always hot. They're always ready to go. They're always ramped up.
Is Trump one? Because he's real quick on the trigger finger.
No, we'll go into Trump's chart. I'll do anyone's chart. I'd love to explain people like that. Trump's a Gemini. Gemini has a lot of those qualities, like they're very quick, very, very quick. They're very assertive, but their whole thing is about social interactions. They're not violent unless it's coming to like a social level. They're the masters of the social domain. They are the master communicators. They're the master manipulators. They're two-faced. But we don't want to skip Taurus. Let's do Taurus. Taurus is the opposite of Aries in a lot of ways. Taurus is, and we should go into the physical descriptions. Aries, the way that you'll know an Aries is by their forehead and their eyebrows. They have angry eyebrows. They're very curled, almost like the Grinch. They look like Klingons in Star Trek with the furrowed forehead. Very angry, stuck angry all the time. Taurus, you have the eyes very far apart, like a cow. The eyes are on both sides of the head.
Are my eyes far apart, dude?
I don't think so. But you'll see that. Like Uma Thurman is a Taurus. George Clooney's a Taurus. Renee Zellweger's a Taurus. And these people have their eyes very
Is the
far
sloth
apart.
from Ice Age a Taurus? Because his eyes are really far apart too. What's his name? Sid? Something like that?
Yeah. I don't remember what he is, but
I'm going to look him up. Hold on.
This is important. Gemini. So, okay, Tauruses are very slow. They're very slow moving. They love to eat. Their thought process is very slow. Taurus is the most inarticulate sign, meaning it takes the most energy for them to get a thought from their head out through their mouth the way that they want it to be said. It's a long process for them. And that's why they get... Taurus is the dumbest sign, basically, is what I'm getting at.
Damn, bro. It's like that?
But it's not like that, These are just themes. But that is a current theme. You'll see they're very materialistic. They're very...
I am.
Not in the bad way. They love their things. They love their stuff. They collect. They're very...
Look at my fucking wall, bro.
Yeah. If they're in a relationship, they can be a little clingy, maybe. They love to just be, they love to hold on to things, whether it's people but Tauruses, they tend to be more burly, more on the burly side, and more, just slower paced and more calm. They're very calm and tranquil, and they're like stone. Taurus rules stone, so they're like...
It's like Stoics.
Yeah, they're stone-like. They're very sturdy. You'll see that even the skinny Tauruses have very thick bones. They're very sturdy. And then you get to Gemini. Geminis are they're very bird-like. They can be very serpent-like. They are two heads on one body, two people inside one body, two different entities that are wrestling inside the body. So they can be very happy at one point, then they're very angry. They can be your best friend, then they'll be your worst enemy within a matter of seconds. They're very polar because they're ruled by Mercury, and we're going to see the other sign that Mercury rules, Virgo, has some of those same qualities. So Aries is ruled by Mars. I should have said that. Taurus is ruled by Venus. So Aries, the masculine sign, ruled by Mars, the masculine planet. Taurus, the feminine sign, ruled by Venus, the feminine goddess. Gemini is ruled by Mercury. Mercury is a little bit in between masculine and feminine. But Gemini is a masculine sign. So Trump's a Gemini. Angelina Jolie's a Gemini. Tim Pool is a Gemini. I'm just pulling out random people. But
it's really interesting though, because do you feel that they put these people in certain positions according to their signs to be able to influence a certain type of way?
As much as I want to say there's a they that's definitely doing stuff like that, but I think it's more important to understand that this is how God like does his work. So, for example, there's a part of your chart that tells you what your career is going to be, and you will be amazed at how accurate that is. And everyone has this in their chart. It's not like you need some fortune teller to figure it out for you. You can see what your purpose is in life. And some people, a lot of like the very ignorant types will say, "Oh, dude, I earned everything in this fucking life, bro. I worked so hard for this shit. You're going to tell me it was all just the planets?" And that's just ridiculous. You have to understand the difference between how and why. So you might have worked hard your whole life. You might have never given a shit about the planets, and you might have gotten somewhere good. You might be successful, Well, it's not that astrology was helping you or hurting you that whole time. How you got there is what you did, but the why is astrology, and the why is always going to be there, no matter what type of person you are. If a king, you're going to see that he's a king in their chart. Now, how they got there, that's more of like your willpower. That's more of your that's destiny versus fate, will versus fate type thing. The fate is your zodiac sign. That is printed on you. That's stuck on you. You are your zodiac. You are your horoscope, your birth chart. But past to that, you make the how, but the why is already there.
Yeah, it's like the Tractus. The points are there. They'll never change, but the void between them is what changes your journey.
So now, sorry, what?
No, what was the last sign that you were on?
Gemini. So Gemini, two-faced. They're very polar. They're hot and cold. They're very, you get the idea. They get likened to a snake a lot because of that two-sided nature. They're like they can be almost reptilian-like, for lack of a better word, because they show you one thing and then they can hide another thing. But they're the best on the phone. Geminis, you'll see they work from their phone a lot. They're the best with their hands, and they're the best communicators. So that makes them the best liars too.
What's Alex Jones?
Oh shit, I don't know. I don't know.
I gotta look up his birthday.
If I had to guess, he's like a Virgo. But if you ask me any A-list celebrity, I can tell you there. Because once you know someone's birth sign, birth day.
February 11th, 74.
Oh, well, he's an Aquarius. That makes sense. Aquariuses are the cartoon characters. They're animated. So Aquariuses are always like that. Like Johnny Rotten is an Aquarius.
Very animated, very...
Yes. Well, they look like cartoon characters.
Entertainment.
They're like caricatures. Ed Sheeran, Johnny Rotten. They both have orange hair. It look like aliens.
What's Nick Cage? Or is he a B-list celebrity to you? Because Nick Cage is my dad.
He's a Capricorn. He's a total Capricorn. Capricorns are all about comedy and tragedy. So they're like the comedy tragedy mask. They're either comedy or tragedy. They love their careers. They love their job.
I fucking love Nick Cage. He's fucking amazing.
So Nick Cage, you see he's very serious a lot of the time. Even when he's being funny, he's being very serious. And Capricorn is the comedian.
Hail Nicolas Cage.
Bro, I'm gonna show you some of the music that me and my friends make, like fake rap music. I have like 50 rap songs, by the way.
You're a rapper, bro?
Yeah, but it's funny. We have a Nick Cage song, but blah blah blah. You can cut this out. But
I'm not gonna cut it out, bro.
So we're jumping all over the place. Nick Cage is a Capricorn. But Cancer is the mother of the zodiac. They have big titties a lot of the time. Cancer women will have big titties. You'll notice. A Leos, they stick their chest out. Leos, they stick their torso out. Like, look at me, They're the lions. They walk into a room and they light up the room because they're ruled by the sun. Cancer is ruled by the moon. And the moon is the mother. The word mother comes from the word material. And the moon rules all material, all matter, mother, material, mutter. It's all the same word. Mud, So that's all the feminine. And Cancer is the most. So Taurus is the most feminine sign. Cancer is the most motherly sign. Taurus rules fertility. Cancer rules motherhood and reproduction. So there's a distinction between the two. Now, Leo rules performance and entertainment. So Leos, people don't like Leos unless they're being entertained by them, because they can be like the sun. They're too bright. They're too hot. People don't want to be around them because they hog the sun, the limelight, if that makes sense. They're loud. They like being loud. They like they want to be the star of the show, the center of attention, like a cat. And all Leos are narcissists, and it's not because they're bad.
What months are those? So I know.
So this is July 21st to August 21st, roughly.
And they're narcissists, bro? Damn.
Well, kind of. They have a tendency to. They think about themselves.
I don't think I know anybody.
It's not a bad thing, too. That's the beauty of astrology. You learn astrology, and once you know astrology and you know everyone's signs, if a Gemini is being two-faced to me, I'm not going to take it personally. If an Aries is picking a fight with me, I know it's not my fault. He's just an Aries. If a Scorpio backstabbed me, that's my fault, because I should have known Scorpios are backstabbers. Don't put a Scorpio in a position where they
have to pick,
where they can revenge you. Get revenge on you.
Interesting.
So, and Sagittariuses are cheaters. So if you have to keep if you're with a Sagittarius, you have to keep a Sagittarius interested, because they'll cheat on you. Blah blah blah. I don't want to make anyone angry with that. That's just the truth. Capricorn is all about work. They'll put their families behind their career, and their family will be, well, hey, what about me? What is, why do you hate us? Well, they're just a Capricorn, and they're being influenced by other planets that you may not be being influenced by, if that makes sense. And there are planets that rule your job, your school. These are all threads of life that, even if there was no such thing as a school 10,000 years ago, these planets and these correspondences still exist. They're not made up whatsoever. They're universal. And as the ages pass, the way they express themselves might change. But, Mercury rules education. So Virgos are the best students. Virgos are the bookworms. They get like straight A's and finish school early almost all the time. Capricorn, you'll see them become the managers. Capricorn and Libra become managers all the time. They'll start a job and then they'll be the manager within a year. It just always happens.
What comes before a Taurus?
Aries. Yeah.
The ones that you said are fat, right?
They're not fat. Aries, these are themes. These are themes. We're not talking about the individual people born in this sign. We're talking about the sign itself.
Yeah.
Now you have 12 different aspects to your chart. So no one's just one sign. I'm a Sagittarius. I also have Taurus and Gemini in my chart.
Oh shit.
So I'm a Gemini. That's why I'm always talking with my hands. You're sitting back there like chilled out like a Taurus. I'm like over here trying to get my hands on everything because I have Gemini in my chart.
Sorry, continue. Yeah, what was the next one?
I mean, we already went out of order, but I think we covered most of them. Aquarius, they're distant. They like their distance. They keep people at arm's distance. They love people and cities and parties and festivals, but they don't like bringing people close, if that makes sense.
Those are all the EDC people that go to fucking raves?
Yes. So here, I'm in a spiritual bookstore, and I can tell you the two signs that I promise with my own experience, the two signs that come into a spiritual hippie bookstore most often, Aquarius and Sagittarius, because those are the two hippies of the zodiac. Aquarius is like the revolutionary, the hippie, the LGBTQ, it rules all eclectic, weird things. And Sagittarius rules the rainbow. Sagittarius, those are the two signs most likely to be gay, trans, LGBTQ. Sagittarius, Aquarius, and then Libra. But Sag and Aquarius, because they're the wild, weird ones. But Sag and Aquarius come into this bookstore most often. So Aries and Leo, you'll always see them working out or, staying physically active. But whatever. So
I'm trying to find my chart because I have it somewhere here.
Okay. Yeah, I could maybe do that. I don't know how interesting that would be for people, but
no, I'm not sharing it. I just want to see what else is in there.
Yeah, tell me your moon and ascendant if you can do that.
I have to look for it. You can keep talking.
Okay. So whatever. I think we covered each of them a little bit. Libra is all about aesthetic. Libra is where you get the word library, libre, freedom. The bar. So Libras are all about, they love to party and drink. Libras are big drinkers. They love to drink and get drunk. Libra rules the kidneys, and drinking has a lot to do with the kidneys, the liver too, but the kidneys. And Libra is where the word lawyer and law comes from. Well, if you want to get drunk and have fun like a Libra, you go to a bar. If you want to become a lawyer like a good Libra, you pass the bar exam, right? So you see the correspondence between drinking culture and the law, and both are ruled by Libra. So I think we covered everyone pretty much. Scorpio is all about sex. That's kind of a cliche, but it's true. They're very sexual. They're very, they love a deep connection. They like to penetrate things. They want to get to the root, the core of everything. And so that can be a sex thing. That can be, penetration, or it can be them going deep. They're the most focused sign. They're highly focused. They're like a hawk. Scorpio is the hawk, the eagle. They're up, they can be up a mile above the sky, and they can see a little rat on the ground from a mile up. So that's Scorpio. And Scorpios are sexy. They're people's favorite sign to look at in terms of sexuality. So Leonardo DiCaprio, Ryan Reynolds.
Interesting. I even like looking at them. Ryan Reynolds and Leonardo DiCaprio are fucking beautiful.
Leonardo DiCaprio, Ryan Reynolds, Ryan Gosling. The list goes on and on.
Seriously.
Scorpios, they're all the heartthrobs. They're the seducers. They're the people that just, even if they're not being sexual, they spark sexuality in others. So that's where the theme comes from. Then you get Sagittarius. Like we said, they're wild. They're the horse of the zodiac. The horse needs lots of room to run around. Sagittariuses tend to be big, like big. They're either alpha male types, like big and like very jovial and jolly, or they're the runts, like the runt of the litter. So they'll either be stunted or they'll be very big. But Capricorn, yeah, we already talked. I think we talked about everyone a little bit. But
trying to figure out what's in my moon because it's like some weird sign. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I can do yours real quick. Astrotheme.com is the best website, by the way. You can do it for free whenever you want.
Yeah, because I have a whole hour video that my friend did for me. She did a whole thing, but like I said, a lot of the stuff was spot on. A lot of the shit was too accurate. And she didn't really know me until, but then I'm like, is it a coincidence? Is it not? Or is it how you said astrology is the key to everything? And it sounds kind of gay, though, right? Astrology, like when you think of astrology, it's like, oh my God.
Well, yeah. See, like, I never even gave a shit about astrology until I found out about it, until I found out what it was actually about. So I grew up, like, I'm a vegan too. I don't know, I'm vegan. I grew up hunting. I grew up killing. I've hunted everything there is. I grew up like wearing camo and playing with guns all day. And as soon as I heard what I needed to hear, as soon as I learned what I needed to learn, I just changed. There was no wanting to change. I never wanted to stop eating meat. It was just like, oh, well, I know better now, so I just have to stop. When I learned astrology, there was no choice whatsoever. There was no decision to believe in it. I heard it and I knew it to be true. I remembered it. I mean, I was into astrology in my past life. I know that. But I just accepted it as soon as I heard about it. So as soon as I found out I was a Sagittarius, I didn't even know my birth sign until I was like 19. And as soon as I learned it, I pretty much knew everything there was within about a year. I learned, I went from not knowing any of the zodiac signs to being able to recite them and memorize people's birthdays and stuff like that. So it's a science. It's not something you believe in. But I forget where I was going with that. But I think we should touch before, we're probably getting towards the end here. But I think we should touch on the racial astrological correspondences.
Yeah,
so
go for it.
When the races got split up after the Ice Age, the capital city had all of the knowledge of the record keeping, whether it was like the ark, like an ark that had all the domesticated animals were preserved, all the seeds were preserved, all the knowledge, the libraries. The biggest library was in the North Pole, and the Alexandrias, the little libraries around the world, were spread out, and they were lesser libraries. They had regional knowledge. Well, the whole point of the capital city being in the center of the earth, hell, the North Pole, is that you're equidistant from each corner of the earth. It's the center. So the center is the point where it makes sense to keep all of the knowledge. You know what I mean? You don't want to keep all the records for Australia in Argentina. You want to keep them in the North Pole so that if something happens, it's in a central location. So blah, blah, blah. You have the Ice Age happen, and one group of people is stuck in the ice. The rest of the tropical people who are below the equator, because remember, the northern hemisphere became covered in ice. The southern hemisphere was flooded. So the tropical people that survived, if they survived the ice, if they survived the flood, they had to go find the different areas that it was okay to live in, that it was possible to live in. So, but this one capital city was stuck in the ice, and it was being kept alive by the Gulf Stream, this warm water that comes up from the Gulf of Mexico, Florida, and and in my next video, and on the next, if we do another podcast, we have to get into this John Saxer guy that believes Florida was the Garden of Eden.
Did you reach out to him?
I reached out to him. I don't know if he's dead, but I've got some good video of him, but that doesn't matter. So the Gulf Stream goes up from Florida up to the Gulf of Finland, where the Phoenicians and the Finnish people are from, the Vikings and the people with the boats that spread agriculture. We know the Phoenicians spread agriculture and language to the whole world. Well, whatever. So
that's where phonetics comes from, right? Phoenicians.
That's phonetics, exactly. Mm-hmm. So from the Ice Age, this one group of brown hair, brown-eyed people is now stuck in the North Pole, and it's freezing. This one group has all the knowledge, but they have nowhere to go. All they have to do is wait and sit. So it's during this time they invent the card games. It's during this time they invent a lot of the fairy tales, the stories that they tell each other. And it's this time that the people in the North Pole started turning white. And this brown hair, brown-eyed people starts getting bleached by the lack of sun. Just like you see a husky. You see a husky or a polar bear with the blue eyes because they're closer to the North Pole. Arctic animals have blue eyes. So the Arctic race of humanity is the capital city. The people that were stuck in the capital city.
Interesting.
So
that's Atlantis, though? Is that Atlantis?
Well, it's going to become Atlantis.
Lemuria, is that all the same thing? Hyperborea?
Well, Lemuria was the Pacific, the tropical races.
Oh, shit.
Lemuria was the survivors of the two tropical races, the black race. And the black race, we're going to get to this again. The black race was not black. And, people don't like getting called black. Black, white, neither are really accurate. But that's the best we can do. Black was so black at one point. The black race was so dark. Because we're all mixed now. We're all mixed a little bit. You have a little white DNA in you. I have a little something in me that's, from somewhere else. And we're all mixed a little bit. The original white race was so white that they had no sun resistance whatsoever. Their hair was so white and their eyes were so blue that there was no way they could live in a tropical place. Well, the same way that the white people in the capital city got bleached, the people in the tropical lands that were closest to the equator became darkened by the sun. And they became the dark races, the black race, the Nubian race. And the Nubian race was so dark that they were actually indigo. Indigo, like purple or dark, dark blue. And if you've ever seen some of these, like the Dinky, I think the Dinky tribe, or some of the Zulus, some of these dark, dark sub-Saharan Africans, they're so dark that they glimmer almost purple, and it's almost magical when you see these like pure black race. And it's the same way when you see
someone with the clear eyes, right? A lot of them.
Some of them, yeah. Some of them. But they're also some of the tallest. That's something else that you have to realize. The pure races, and you don't want to say pure race too much. People don't like stuff like that.
It's racist as fuck.
the pure races were the tallest races. So the pure black people, if you see the Dinky tribe, I think that's what they're called. That's like the Dinka tribe. The Dinka tribe is where you get the tallest people on the planet. Well, the other tallest people on the planet, and they're dark black. They're like indigo, like an indigo snake. Like,
Interesting. Yeah, they are really tall.
they're the tallest, the Dinka tribe. The other tallest people on the planet are the Dutch and the Nordic people, which are the pure white. They're 99% of that Atlantean white Cro-Magnon DNA. And those are the other tallest people on the planet, is the whitest of the white. So you have the whitest of the white being very tall, and then you have the blackest of the black being very tall.
They cut into their heads. Have you seen that?
Yeah, they do stuff like that too. There's different groups, there's different sections, but you see how tall they are. It's just insane. And so whatever. So
is that why like the avatars are so tall and they're like kind of like that blue, and they're kind of like
I mean, kind of.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. They're meant to represent like like indigenous peoples. I think that movie's like racist, and you know, people don't care about that.
It's one of
stuff.
my favorite movies, though, dude.
So you have the black race pop up where the sun comes through the strongest in the equatorial zones. You see these dark people, and you see it. So there you go. You have the white race comes into existence because they're stuck in the ice with like the northern lights and the the Arctic sun. There's no sun for like 9 months of the year, some shit like that. So basically you have the white race pop up, then you have the black race pop up, and then you have the Asian race. They're called Mongolian, they're called Oriental. These names are racist now too. But I'm just trying to show where these individual root races come from. There's 5 root races. And this is important because they want to destroy these 5 root races. They want one human race that has no cultural identity, no distinctive features, so that they're more malleable, they're more workable, and more easily manipulated. If you have no cultural identity, you'll just be down with anything. You'll be down with the control. You'll be down with the
sickness.
The virtual reality. And
who doesn't like some good VR porn though, dude? I mean, have you ever tried it, dude? Don't knock it till you try it.
No. So we should get into the planetary rulership. Basically, the white race being at the center, being at the capital city, they received the influence of the planet Jupiter. Jupiter was the king of the gods, not necessarily because he's the best, but because he was at the center. He's the king. He's the pure divine light, of which there's a good quote by a Greek philosopher, a Greek astrologer. If Jupiter was the only planet in the sky, everything would live forever, and there would be no bad on the world. So that's Jupiter's influence. Jupiter is the best. And we're not saying white people are the best. We're saying this is where being in the capital city is where they get this sort of status, the status of being.
Yeah, the number one. I mean, if you hang around enough people for a long enough time, you're going to start to think that A, you're the only ones, B, that you should probably be the superior race because, there are, and I'm brown so I can say this, but there are, I believe, black supremacists and there are white supremacists.
Exactly.
There are people who they are racist. I mean, they're fucking racist. I think that we are all human and that we all bleed the same. We are all we're made in the image of God. God is omnipotent. He's omnipresent. All that shit. So I think all this stuff how you said is part of that. They're moving away from that humanism movement to the transhumanism stuff, and they want to. What's the oldest tactic in the book? Divide and conquer. Divide the people up. They're easier. They're more malleable. He said they're more susceptible to other ideas, and they're more susceptible to things like totalitarianism, where they need to. They need to. They need to. How do I say this? It's they need the government.
Sorry.
You know, they need
Exactly.
that power to. There's another word. They rely on these governmental powers, and the government taxation is fucking theft, people. Okay, fuck the government.
And they also want us to worship. They want the government to be our god. They want the government to be the only planet in the sky, so to speak. They want all the authority and all the influence. So, but the best part of this is we get to learn, we get to appreciate the gifts of each race. You know, like, yes, we're all human, but we are different for a reason. You were born in Puerto Rico for a reason. I was born, in Florida for a reason. The Buddha was born in India for a reason. So we all fulfill a certain path. There isn't just one path, or else what would be the point? So each race, just like each individual person has their own destiny, each race has their own destiny. And we're starting with the white race is the Jupiter sign. So Jupiter rules sea travel. Jupiter rules Sagittarius and Pisces, which are the two signs of sea travel and sea voyages. So white people, the Vikings and the Phoenicians they were the people that had the navy. They had the ships in the water before anybody else. They were the ones that had they could sail, basically. They're the race that's most acclimated to sea travel, and that's because of their planetary correspondence. They also are the white race, for the most part, was Christian, and Christian is the Jupiterian religion. You're going to see how, let's go to Islam, for example, the Middle Eastern race, and the Middle Eastern race starts in not Egypt. Egypt is not the Middle Eastern race. They're mixed a little bit, but from Iraq to
Ancient Mesopotamia.
From Mesopotamia to India.
Mm-hmm.
So India to Mesopotamia. Everything in between, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Saudi Arabian, Indian, they all belong to the Venusian race. They are ruled by the planet Venus. And the planet Venus is the feminine god. So in those cultures, you see a big emphasis on women. In India, they're very matriarchal. The women takes on a lot of the.
Thought it was opposite though, bro. I thought women were suppressed in the Middle East.
Well, there you go. Let's look at the religious iconography of Islam.
Mm-hmm.
What do they worship? What are their two symbols? The moon and Venus.
Interesting.
So the morning star is Venus. Lucifer is is Venus, by the way. Venus is Lucifer, and Venus is the morning star, the star that very often is in the crescent of the moon, because it rises and it sets very close to the moon, because they're both feminine. So Venus is the star that you see on all of the Islamic symbolism. Yeah. And then you also get the crescent moon. So the box, also the box, the square that the
cube.
The cube that they worship, the cube has to do with Venus. People think it's Saturn, and it is Saturn. It does have to do with Saturn because it's black. They painted it black. They covered it with some black shit. Originally, that's a rock.
Mm-hmm.
In the middle of that,
it's a meteorite.
Square box is a meteorite.
Mm-hmm.
And that they attribute to the planet Venus. What they did, every religion gets corrupted by the Saturnians, if that makes sense, by the people who spiritually are Saturnian, not the South American race. The Native American race is ruled by the planet Saturn. So they have the death cults and the sacrificing and stuff, but that doesn't mean they're evil. They're not evil. They are biologically and culturally ruled by the planet Saturn. But the people on the planet that spiritually revere Saturn are lost and evil. Jupiter, remember, we're not saying white people are the best because they're the Jupiter race. Biologically, they're ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter is the lightest planet, so they have the lightest skin, right? So, but when we talk about spiritually, every religion loves Jupiter. Every good spiritual religion, faith, loves Jupiter because
that's why he's Jesus.
He's Jesus. He's Krishna. Jesus Christ is Krishna. It's the same person. Christ, Jesus Christ, is Jupiter. But Jupiter's also it's a solar myth. So he's also the son of God, the sun in the sky.
The sun, S-O-N and S-U-N, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's two myths kind of mashed up into one, but that's how it goes. Because in the age of Pisces, he's the sun, but in the age of Pisces, he's ruled by the planet Jupiter. In the age of Aries, he's the warrior. So it's still the story of the son of God going through the sky. But now he's going to be wearing ram horns or a ram's body, so to speak. It's the same story gets repeated in every age, but whatever. So Islam is it used to be the most feminine. It used to be the most feminine religion. What happened is they got co-opted, just like Catholicism, just like, every major religion gets co-opted, and it got infiltrated by the Saturnian death cult. And these are the people that spiritually, they hand their soul over to Saturn for reward in the material realm. Whereas the good religions of the planet tell you to hand your soul over to Jupiter because he's the purest and most forgiving and, the love. He's not the god of love, but he's the god of acceptance, if that makes sense. So, and he's pure. Jupiter's pure. And if you notice, Saturn is Lord. So anytime you see the word Lord, when you pray, you either pray to two people. You're either praying to Jesus or you're praying to the Lord. The Lord is the punisher. He's Saturn. He's the stepfather. He's the punisher. He's the false father. Jesus, his false father was Joseph. Joseph is the Hebrew name, Joseph. In Egyptian, his name is, in Joseph is the English name. In Hebrew, his name is Seth. In Egyptian, his name is Set. In
What
Roman,
the fuck, bro? Seriously?
In Roman, his name is Saturn.
Mm-hmm.
This is where you get the word satire, satin. Satin is what you get wrapped in when you're dead. Satin, or you wear satin to a funeral. Satin is, satin. Satire is the darkest form of humor. Black comedy, black comedy. Saturn rules blackness, not black skin, but blackness, like darkness, like evil. So
that's why
Saturn,
Antifa wears black, right?
Right, and Saturn is the black sun. He's the black sun. And the evil people worship the black sun because they don't like Jupiter. Jupiter isn't going to reward you for doing evil things. People always ask too, well, if there's a God, why are there evil people? Why do evil people get so ahead in life? Well, the answer is God is not just one God. He's 7 gods, and one of those gods, one of his faces, is the punisher. It's the evil God that will give give rewards to people that punish others, if that makes sense. So there's a god of evil. So if you do evil deeds, one of those gods is going to reward you, and his name is Saturn. So these demons, these evil families of the earth, they make deals with Saturn. And they do things that Saturn will reward them for, but Jupiter will disavow them for. Jupiter will, disagree and turn his back on them, but they don't care because they want to rule the material world. So they prefer to give up their eternal soul in return for power in the material world. And Saturn is the god that makes that happen. Saturn is the god that is all about sacrifice. You sacrifice and he will
It's funny that sacrifice, you have the same thing with sacred, the sacral chakra. So it's because a sacrifice isn't always bad, right?
Right.
A sacrifice can be also good to appease. It's to appease a god, to appease an entity, but it can be used in a bad connotation, I guess you could say it, where if you're sacrificing a human being or a soul or a baby or something, right? Moloch and all these things, which there's the connections.
So here,
Saturn.
Can I show you the connection between Moloch and Saturn?
Yeah.
So Saturn is the satyr, satyr, like the satyr with a YR, the goat, the half goat, half man. Well, that's a satyr, and satyr comes from the word Saturn. Well, Saturn is the Roman name for Kronos. Kronos is the Greek god, and Kronos, like Saturn, is the god of time, death, cycles, punishment, karma. You do this and you get that in return. Jupiter is all about like you do good, you do bad, it's forgiven. We're only going to do good. We're only going to make it go forward. We're only going to keep it pure. So that's Jupiter. So every religion should try and bring you into touch with Jupiter. And we're not saying that one planet is better than all the others, but that's what it represents is purity.
I want to add that the demiurge's number is number 4, formation, and that's why the 4, the cube, folds out into a cross. Jesus was crucified on the cross, which the cross represents materiality. The cube represents that is within, right? Because there are various directions, and up, down, and within is one. The 7 points you have, it's all broken down in the cube, but essentially the 7th point is that within, is the anchor point to which you go right from that. So it plays again into this whole idea of God being multifaceted.
Well, that's like Saturn. Just like you have the cube with the 1 point in the middle being the 7th point. When you look at the North Pole of Saturn and you see that hexagram on the North Pole, like you've seen that, right?
The hexagon, you connect it and it makes a cube.
There's a hexagon on the North Pole of Saturn, on the fake Saturn and the pole point in the North Pole is the 7th point. So people say, well, if Saturn is all about 6, it's the number 666, 666 is Saturn. If it's 666, then why is it the 7th planet? It's the 7th planet. Well, that's because, just like you said, you have the 6 points on the outside, then you have the 1 point in the middle. But
is it the 7th planet or 6th planet? I've always said it's the 6th planet. It's because it's 6th planet from the sun, 6th day of the week.
Well, that's because in the geocentric system, the sun is a planet. So you go moon.
Really?
Yes. You have 5 planets, and then you have the moon in your left hand, in your left palm, because palm is an anagram for lamp. your palm, these palms, and this is where you do all the Reiki with your energy lamp. So your palms are lamps, and the two lamps in the sky are a sun on your right side, your masculine side. This is why you do business and stuff with your right hand. You shake people's hands with your right hand because it's the bright side, it's the light side. The moon is the left side, your feminine side. This is more emotions and creativity and stuff like that. So left-handed people are more in the feminine mind, like Jimi Hendrix. The best, is it any coincidence that the best guitar player ever is left-handed and played a right-handed guitar upside down with his left hand, thus allowing him to use a different half of his brain compared to every other guitarist that's playing it the exact same way and only using the one part of their brain? He flipped it over and got access to that other half, if that makes sense.
What the fuck?
Left-handed people, artists of all entertainers and artists, left-handed people make up almost half of high-functioning, high-performance entertainers, despite only being 1/10 of the population of the whole world. Does that make sense? So 1 out of 10 people are lefties. But when you get to like rock stars and like poets and famous artists, almost half of them are left-handed. Because left-handed people are more creative. They use the right side of their brain because the left side of your body's connected to the right side of your brain. So Jimi Hendrix was lefty. Kurt Cobain, lefty. Jim Morrison, lefty. Janis Joplin, lefty. The list goes on and on. Then they're all in the 27 club. But
interesting.
Blah blah blah. So back to the races. Mars rules the Asian races. Mars. So the Asian race, which is Japanese, Korean, Chinese, I already ran out. Japanese, Chinese, Korean, Thai, Taiwanese, you get it. The people with the yellow skin, for lack of a better word, they are ruled by the planet Mars. Now, which race gives us martial arts? So there you go. The Asian race, each Asian country has like 10 different types of martial arts. Then you go to Europe and there's no martial arts. So you see how these planetary, and Mars is all about hands-on and being like the body and fighting and healing, but hands-on healing. So in Asia, you see a lot of hands-on healing, whether it's the massage, the acupuncture, and acupuncture. Pretty violent, right? That's pretty Martian.
I've never had it before.
But
looks gnarly.
It's piercing. It's getting you get pierced. So that's a martial. It's a very martial treatment. Massage can be pretty violent too, especially when you see how it's supposed to be done. It can hurt you, So
and it releases toxins in your body too.
So that's also very martial. And the Asian races, the Asian cultures were most in tune with this. So when the races got split up, the white race had all the records and the knowledge, but the tropical races had their one gift that they kept and became a practice and art form that none of the other races had. So like we said with the Native Americans and the South Americans, they had the timekeeping system. They had sacrifice. Who knows if that was good or bad, or whether it was really like how we're told, but that was a theme. So they had that timekeeping system that was unrivaled in anywhere else in the world. So then you go to Africa. African people, the dark-skinned Nubian people of the planet, are ruled by the planet Mercury. Now, Mercury rules the arts and also music, but especially rhythm. And black and African people have the most rhythm. They invented jazz, they invented the blues, they invented rock and roll, so you have all this European history of music, but European music has little to no emphasis on rhythm or groove. African music brought to the world by the dark-skinned race of Africa, is very groove-based, very rhythm-based, and they as a people have rhythm. And my favorite joke that I like to tell that I came up with is, you get 100 white people and you put them in a room, you're going to get a massacre. If you take 100 black people and put them in a room, you're going to get the best concert you've ever been to in your life. Right?
Hey, they have the drums and all this shit, right? That's their whole cult. Oh, the African culture. They communicate with fucking drums across distances.
If you know your music, you'll know that polyrhythms, which are actually, and blah blah blah. I don't care if it's racist. Africa is not what you think of when you think of learning and education.
Mm-hmm.
That's just how it is. But when it comes to music, the most complex music in the world comes out of Africa, rhythmically speaking. They use just average tribesmen that have no education whatsoever are able to do these drum patterns, these rhythms. They're called polyrhythms or polymeters, where you're playing two rhythms at the same time. Very difficult to do, even for the most high-trained jazz musicians today. Very difficult to do, and you can only really do it if you're gifted with that ability. And by far and wide, African tribesmen have this ability naturally. So that's why African descended people, they have rhythm. It's not just a stereotype. It's a planetary disposition. So you see like people, Miles Davis, Jimi Hendrix, John Coltrane, the list goes on and on of people that you don't get white figures like that. You don't get European characters like that represent that much just like uninhibited artistic genius.
Kanye West.
Kanye, I mean, maybe. But,
bro, what? Kanye West is one of the greatest musicians of all time, dude.
No.
I think so, dude.
He's one of the greatest robots of all time.
You think he's a what do they call him?
He's okay. I don't know. I've never met the guy, but
humanoid.
I never met the guy, but anyone that's married to Kim Kardashian for like 8 years or 4 years, whatever that was,
He's a reptilian.
That's a pretty big red flag,
He's a homunculus, 100%. I get it, bro. You can say.
But so what race haven't we talked about?
So we touched on the brown,
Jupiter, Native American, Saturn,
Hispanics.
Yeah, well, Hispanic is Native American. They're Saturnian. They're the Native American. Jupiter's the white race, the Nordic race. Like all the white races we have today, those are mixed. Those are mixed people. The original white race is so far removed, it almost doesn't exist today. Just like the black race,
like from the Caucasus Mountains. Those are the OG whites.
Well, that's where they landed. That's where they landed after the flood. Because remember, they were the only people. They were the only people that had the boats when the flood happened. Every race had like helicopters, advanced technology, boats,
what the fuck?
Airplanes, spaceship. Every race had that at some point in time. But after the most recent ice age, these are the cards that we were given, if that makes sense. So Noah's Ark is about the Caucasian race leaving the North Pole after the ice age, after the flood. They leave the North Pole and they make first contact with the tropical races, the black, the Asian, the Mediterranean. They meet up with them after the ice age, and you have now there's 5 different races that are extremely, extremely different. And that's part of the game. Part of the game that we're given in this age is that there's racial differentiation. It wasn't always like that, and it's not always going to be like that. But those are the conditions that we're under right now. So let me think about who we're missing. Asian, Mars, Venusian, Middle Eastern, Mercurian, African race. I think that's all of them. 5 races. So those are the 5 planetary races. Those are the 5 root races of humanity. Can you hear that car alarm going off? So, yeah.
Well, we'll pick up whatever else we left out on the next one. It's getting late here on the East Coast. Do you have any concluding thoughts, bro? This is a lot of information to digest. We covered a ton of things.
Yes.
In 2.5 hours.
I have one thing that we forgot to tie up. Moloch. How is Moloch Saturn? Well, Moloch is the owl, right? The owl is the bird form of Saturn. Saturn is the owl. He's also the goat. He's also the crocodile, alligator. So Jupiter, for example, he's a horse. He's an eagle. He's also something else I'm forgetting. But basically, each planet has a couple different forms that it can take. So with Moloch, Saturn, I was trying to get into that. Saturn is the Roman name. Kronos is the Greek name. When we go up to Germany or Norway, the Scandinavian countries, the name for Saturn is not Saturn. It's Loki. So Loki is the Nordic form of Saturn, and he's the villain to Jupiter, or Thor. So he's Thor's enemy, and Thor is Thor's day. So our days of the week could have easily had been Thor's day, Freya's day. Freya is Venus. And then instead of Saturn's day, it could have just as easily had been Loki's day. And this is kind of like, this is a stretch, but people are always saying like low key now.
Yeah.
I think that might be like a subtle.
Oh, loco is different. Definitely.
Loco. There you go. Loco.
It was Loki.
Exactly.
Like related to Loki.
So Loki, from Loki, you get Moloch. Moloch comes from Loki. So Moloch is Saturn. And Saturn is also Joseph, because Joseph is Jesus's stepdaddy.
Oof.
You know, stepdaddies are bad, usually, or like
never heard that one before, bro.
Archetype. Joseph is Jesus's stepdaddy, and the stepdad is the false father. He's the authority figure, but no love, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because it's not your offspring.
That's Saturn's role in the universe. He's all about authority. He doesn't really love you. You know, he doesn't care about you. He's all about punishment, giving you what you deserve. So Moloch is Saturn. Saturn is Set. Set is Seth. Seth is Joseph. Joseph becomes Joseph. So Joseph is Saturn.
You get Enki and Enlil too, in that the two brothers, the opposing.
Yeah, and Jesus is Saturn's son, and Jupiter is Saturn's son, if that makes sense.
And that's because he eats his kids. That's also another Moloch reference, because you sacrifice your kids to Moloch. Exactly. And he eats his kids, and then which I think was a Zeus or Jupiter. I think the one that figures it out and puts the rock. The mom substitutes the rock for it, and then he swallows the rock instead, and then regurgitates that rock, and supposedly that's where... Is that where they tied Prometheus up? The navel of the world?
Well, kind of. Prometheus if you're talking astrologically, Prometheus is also Venus.
Mm.
Because Venus is Lucifer.
The light bringer. Yeah.
Yeah,
The
the
fire
morning
bearer.
star. Exactly.
Interesting shit, bro.
But yeah, that's a good place to wrap.
I'm telling you, we got plenty to talk about because
yeah,
this shit goes deep, and maybe we'll get into some Florida for the next episode. It's getting late out here on the East Coast. You want to plug your stuff, bro, for the listeners at home where they can find you?
Sure. Old World Florida on YouTube. Then old_world_Florida on Instagram. And that's it.
Awesome, dude. I'm looking forward to visiting the bookstore. So hopefully we'll
you gotta come down, and we gotta do the next one live from the bookstore.
All right, dude. I'll take my stuff down.
Okay. I've got some cameras and mics and stuff too.
Awesome, dude. Well, really appreciate this, and I had a lot of fun, dude. And we'll catch you guys on the other side. Thank you so much for those that stuck around this long. It's really insightful and really fun.
Thanks, homunculus.
Homuncologist, bro.
Homuncologist.